Trying hard, but you wanna be my friend. Ain't no place to hide, ain't no one to run to. Here we go again. Call my bluff, I'ma be here till the end. I'm the one you ride, I'm the one you ride to. If you don't wanna change, ain't no place to hide, ain't no one to run to. If you don't wanna change, I can help you out, 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 I can help you out. Here we go again. Time is up and I'm calling up my friends. Ain't no wonder why, ain't no one to ride to. Here we go again. Call me up and you wanna be my friend. I'm the one you ride, I'm the one you ride to. If you don't wanna change, ain't no place to hide, ain't no one to run to. If you don't wanna change, I can help you out, 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 I can help you out. I can help you out, I can help you out. Look, if you don't wanna change, ain't no place to hide, ain't no one to run to. If you don't wanna change, I can help you out, 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 I can help you out. Here we go again. Trying hard, but you wanna be my friend. Ain't no place to hide, ain't no one to run to. Here we go again. Call my bluff, I'ma be here till the end.
All right. Thank you for the lemons, Carl. I appreciate it. So what's up? I'm doing this early today. I'm recording this for a podcast, so I'm gonna start streaming the podcast on here. I will premiere these videos over on the Gulag owned YouTube, and then if you want to listen to this in podcast form, the link is down in my about section. There's 55 episodes on there as of now. So my name is Ryan. This is Kingsman Reports, the news everyone ignores. I'm going to go over a whole bunch of articles today, and today is February the 17th, I believe. Yes, Monday, February the 17th, 2020. And the first articles you can see on your screen there, I'm going to start off with, because I am in Oklahoma, and this is at a Zero Hedge. Put this article up. You don't really hear anything about Oklahoma, so I'm going to cover this article. It says, this is just chauvinism. Oklahoma woman upset after being thrown out of an all-male barbershop. Now, I'm not going to say I'm not surprised by this. I'm really not. Just certain parts of the state you go to are very, I guess you could say chauvinistic. It's just it's how it is in some parts of the South here. I mean, it's just how it is. And this is a live call-in. If you do want to call in, wait a little bit towards the end there. 1-408-638-0968. Enter the meeting ID 534-233-4758. And you can talk about any topics you want to talk about. You can talk about any of these I'm going to cover. I may not go through all of these, but I'm going to try to make it through the majority of them. Some will have to do with the coronavirus, the COVID-19. Some of them will have to do with Michael Bloomberg. Some of them just are, you know, like this article here. So let's get into this. Like I said, with this, I'm not very surprised. Also in Oklahoma, we're very firm on the right to service. So if someone comes in your place and they're being a total dickbag or whatever you want to call it, if that happens, Oklahoma will just refuse service to you. We'll just be like, well, if you're going to be that way, you could just leave. That's just how it is here. And then no one is really going to throw a fit about it. I haven't seen it happen yet. It says today, in quote, private business owners are allowed to do whatever they want to at their own business, and it's tough shit if you don't like it. It pretty much is. I'm telling you here, it pretty much is. An Oklahoma woman took her story to the media when she was asked to leave an all-male barbershop in Ponca City, Oklahoma last week, which is not too far from where I'm at here. It's a little bit further west of here. It says the barbershop called King Cuts, no affiliation to this here, says it has a, quote, strict no girlfriends or wives policy, according to ABC. Malachi Skoronsky, I guess, and her husband came into the shop to get him a haircut and a beard trim when the owner informed her that she had to leave. The man kind of ignores my husband, directly approaches me and says, I'm sorry, but we have a strict no women policy. You can't be here, she said. She was kicked out before her husband had a chance to sit in the chair, she said. Barbershop owner Daxon Nichols admitted that some people have trouble understanding his rules, but compares it to many women-only salons. I can see his point there, but like I'm saying, I'm not surprised about this. Nichols said in New York City there's over 17 women's-only clubs where women can go and do the salon thing. They get to go do their nails, or get their nails done, hair done, talk business amongst each other, and do the whole women's power, hear me roar stuff. Nichols said he considers his barbershop, quote, a private club. When a reporter asked him if men paid membership fees to get their haircuts there, Nichols responded, yeah, when they pay a $20 fee. Nichols says people get offended at this rule just because they can, and the barber who asked Skoronsky to leave, Scott Seagraves, said he threw her out to, quote, preserve the shop's man cave environment. He continued by saying, this is hellish chauvinism. I mean, I find it funny, but we want guys to be able to come in here and be guys and not have to worry what they say or what they talk about because there's a lady present. He called it chauvinism. Quote, it's not cute no matter how you describe it. It's not cute. You can't treat people that way. Dude, it's like I said, man. If you come here, we're very polite here in our state. We're polite, but this whole and I'm married. I have daughters. But there's a different environment with men and women here. It's different. It's hard to explain it. Women, I can't say without sounding like a chauvinist. I mean, I seriously can't. But it's women. They respect their husbands to a certain point, but if I said they knew, like, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't want to piss anybody off, okay? But it's different here. Okay, so this is out of Blacklisted News. I have another article on here that has to do with Michael Bloomberg and Hillary Clinton, which if you don't know what's going on with that, then I don't know what to tell you, but I hope it's not true, but you can kind of see where it's going. This article says, Michael Bloomberg, I will charge Americans with domestic terrorism for hate crimes if elected, but you probably won't charge anybody that's tied to Antifa or that uses your political ideology to get your agenda across. You probably won't find or arrest those people. It says billionaire presidential Michael Presidential candidate Michael Bloomberg said he would charge Americans with, quote, domestic terrorism for, quote, hate crimes if elected, and bashed nativists in America before affirming his commitment to Israel remaining a, quote, Jewish state in a recent interview with the Jewish Telegraph Agency. Bloomberg, anti-Semite violence is on the rise, and we've seen it in the New York area, including recent horrific attacks in New Jersey and across the country. As a Jew, as an American, and as a human being, I'm deeply disturbed every time I hear about these hate crimes. When the president calls his supporters, quote, real Americans, an echo of the language that nativists, anti-Semites, and the KKK used for many decades, he undermines our fundamental national values. Well, he is silent, and even supportive, though his words and tweets as racist groups spread hate, he puts the public safety of our communities at risk. When he promotes conspiracy theories that are built on lies and prejudice, we must remember anti-Semitism is the original conspiracy theory. A world which a president traffics in conspiracy theories is a world in which Jews are not safe. I will label hate crimes, quote, as domestic terrorism and charge perpetrators accordingly. I will launch a national coordinated effort led by the FBI director and the Department of Justice to crack down on violent extremists. Bloomberg went on to say it's, quote, a solemn obligation of the United States to ensure Israel remains a Jewish state. Israel is the closest and most reliable U.S. ally in the Middle East, and I believe guaranteeing the survival of a democratic Jewish state in the Holy Land is a solemn obligation of the United States, as it has been for more than half a century. So, if you agree with this, or if you don't agree with this, it's just more his stuff. I honestly think it'll be, because I don't really pay attention to the polls, there are a bunch of shenanigans. Anyways, it'll probably be Bloomberg going up against Trump, just billionaire versus billionaire, I'm sure, towards the end there. So, this article, and I don't know why I cut the beginning of it off here, but if you don't know what's going on, apparently Bloomberg wants to choose Hillary Clinton as his running mate, so can't see what's going on there. And this came out, I mean, this is old news. It was on, I think, Drudge came out with it first, but you guys can check that one out later. UN says Libya arms embargo is a, quote, a joke as oil export blockade reaches 1 month. The fighting in Libya, as well as the external arms supplies fueling both sides of the conflict, has become so bad that the United Nations has called an arms embargo recently in place a joke. Well, yeah. The arms embargo has become a joke. We all really need to step up here. UN Deputy Special Representative to Libya, Stephanie Williams, said this weekend at an international security conference in Berlin. It's complicated because there are violations by land, sea, and air, but it needs to be monitored, and there needs to be accountability, Williams added. He noted further that Libya has, over the past multiple months of fighting, been flooded with advanced weapons. Turkey especially is now openly sending military hardware as well as national troops and mercenaries from Syria to defend the UN-backed Tripoli government against General Khalifa Haftar's ongoing offensive to take the capital. A major conference last month also hosted in Berlin sought to store up new commitments from backers on either side of the conflict to uphold the UN arms embargo. It also sought to impose a truce which pro-Haftar forces refused to recognize from the start. At this latest summit, a frustrated German foreign minister, Heiko Maas, urged EU foreign ministers to commit to monitoring the embargo closely and to follow through with action. Everyone needs to know that if they violate the embargo in the future, they will violate the UN resolution, and that this can't remain without consequences, Maas said, without offering details on how it could go enforced. I played videos on here of the weapons trades that are going on and all that crap. I don't know why I didn't play this one over. I don't think I'm going to read this in its entirety, but this says 24 killed in brutal terror attack on Burkina Faso church. Local pastor was targeted. So gunmen killed at least 24 people and wounded 18 more during an attack on a Protestant church in the village of Kanzi and then north of Burkina Faso, announced the governor of the Sahel region, Colonel Salfo Kabori. A group of armed terrorists burst into the village of Panzi in Yaga, a volatile province near the Niger border, and attacked the peaceful local population after having identified them and separated them from non-residents, Colonel Salfo Kabori said in a statement sent to AFP. The Sunday attack occurred during a weekly church service, according to the AFP, and a group of, quote, armed terrorists burst into the village of Panzi in Yanga province and attacked the peaceful local population after having identified them and separated them from non-residents. So these are the articles I'm going to cover about this coronavirus. Look, it's getting upsetting to the point now that everyone that's covering this, and I don't care if this dude ever hears this or not, but the guy that runs Agenda Free TV, for one, I got put off with the guy whenever the fires were going on over in California, and he started making fun of that. That put me off about him in the first place. Yesterday, someone came to me and said that because I'd mentioned in the past that he was, it was like they were taking bets on how many people were gonna get sick and die, what the numbers are gonna be next on the coronavirus coming out of China. I mean, I'm getting pissed off at some of these guys, and then some of the guys are only giving you portions of the truth and not telling you the complete truth. So they're using the fear part of it to just drive fear into you, and then telling them we love you. If they loved you, they would tell you the truth about everything. I tend to try to tell you the truth about everything. I'm not going to continue to harp on the crap. If it gets seriously out of control, then we'll do something else about it. But all these dudes, it has become fear-mongering because you're only telling these people half the information. Tell them the whole truth. And then another thing, if you're putting your videos out there and your videos are monetized, you're making money off of other people's death and destruction. I think that's also sick. Flights carrying American evacuees from coronavirus cruise ship lands in the U.S. with at least 14 people infected. 2 charter flights carrying around 340 Americans who were evacuated from a quarantine cruise ship in Japan have landed in the U.S. with more than a dozen people infected with the coronavirus, or the COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, COVID-19. It says the first plane arrived Sunday night at California's Travis Air Force Base, and the second touchdown early Monday morning at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. All but one of the infected passengers were then taken to the University of Nebraska Medical Center for treatment. Authorities said the group was already en route to a Tokyo airport Sunday when test results showed that 14 of those people have tested positive for the deadly infection. After a consultation with the health officials, the U.S. Department of State allowed an asymptomatic patients to board the aircraft, where they remained in an isolated area away from other passengers. All evacuees will be under quarantine for at least 14 additional days, as is the case for many Americans returning from China, the epicenter of the outbreak. The Diamond Princess cruise ship, operated by California-based Princess Cruise Lines, has been under quarantine in Yokohama, just south of Tokyo, since February 5th, shortly after the Hong Kong man who had recently disembarked from the vessel tested positive for the coronavirus. The ship quickly became the largest center of infections outside of mainland China, with more than 450 people testing positive for the virus as of Monday. Among those patients were at least 46 Americans who are being treated in Japan and did not fly back to the U.S. on Sunday. In a joint statement with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the State Department said all evacuees were, quote, closely monitored by medical professionals throughout the flight, and anyone who happened to become symptomatic would be moved to a specialized containment area. Passengers that develop symptoms in flight and those with positive test results remain isolated on the flights and will be transported to an appropriate location for continued isolation and care, the statement reads. Several passengers who may have been exposed to the infected passengers before or during the flight were also taken to the University of Nebraska's Medical Center for observation. Some of the American evacuees were frustrated with the U.S. government's handling of the situation. It says, "This has been a failed experiment as far as I'm concerned," Sarah Arana, 52, told the Daily News. "Yeah, this sucks. I have to go sit somewhere else for 14 days. It's not ideal." but we haven't been properly quarantined. I have grandchildren. I wouldn't want to go spread this around if I haven't. That would be terrible. I'm totally supportive of any additional quarantine for that reason. Pneumonia-like illness, officially known as the COVID-19, has sickened more than 70,000 people around the world, though the vast majority of cases are in China. About 1,700 patients have died in the country since the virus was discovered in late December. So they're saying 14-day incubation period. They're saying 28-day incubation period. Times are varying on that. They say you can catch it within 15 seconds. They're saying you don't even have to show any symptoms to pass it along to other people. Wash your hands. If you feel the need to wear a mask, do that. Take organic oregano oil and colloidal silver and just disinfect the shit out of everything. All these other guys are just, here's the problem with no idea of a solution or any of that stuff, or we have breaking news. You don't have breaking news. You're reading other people's news articles like we all do that do this. You're reading other people's news articles. It's not breaking news. We just have audiences that listen to certain ones of us. Some of you guys people are getting tired of. Armed thieves steal a truckload of toilet paper in Hong Kong amid worsening shortage of basic goods. So now it looks like toilet paper is the hot commodity. People were thieves, apparently. And I'm just reading these quotes out of the article. So it goes on to say, like the shit is really... looks like the shit is really about to hit the fan in Hong Kong, and we mean that literally. And a shocking indication of just how bad shortages of basic goods have gotten in mainland China expands its lockdown of more than 700 million people in Hong Kong, closes some of its borders. A gang of armed thieves in Hong Kong stole a truckload of toilet paper in a daring robbery last night. Get out of here. Police say the truck driver was taken by surprise and held by a man with a knife, while two others loaded the toilet paper into the getaway vehicle. Well, I thought I needed TP bad. A masked man stole hundreds of rolls of toilet paper in Hong Kong amid coronavirus fears. Those are just some tweets from it. It says, don't worry, we suspect they may have left, quote, a paper trail. That's so cheesy. I didn't write these articles, I'm just reading them. Police are said to be hunting for the gang, according to the AFP, after the heist, which was carried out early Monday by 3 men. The target was a supermarket in Mong Kok, a neighborhood that AFP claims has a close association with the Triad organized crime gang. Well, you stole from the Triads, it's not good. Here's the most ridiculous element of this whole story. Police said the men held up a truck driver, all to steal $130 in toilet paper. I guess that's 130 American is HK 1000. I mean, that's still $130 at what? They're about $5-6 a pack, depending on the size. It's pretty funny. We look forward to the day when the virus subsides and Hong Kong's triad gangs can go back to their old rackets like prostitution and smuggling heroin. Right on. Well, if the triad finds out who stole that toilet paper, it'll be bad for them. Okay, so this article, and everyone's trying to make a huge deal. Look, an article came out that the U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force, filed for the patent for this Tic Tac UFO, and all these other dudes in this niche are like, oh my god, it's a UFO, it looks like a Tic Tac, it's dove in the ocean. You can go look the patents up for it. It's technology, man. If you're in this niche and you know who Ben Rich is at Skunk Works, Lockheed, Skunk Works, you know all this stuff. Ben Rich on his deathbed pretty much said anything that you can, that you've seen in the movies, that you can imagine we've been there or we've done that or decided it wasn't worth it, and it's hidden in the desert. I'm sure at Tonopah, I'm sure at S4 over in where the hipster millennial alien lovers went to try to raid. It's technology through different black ops and different compartmentalized organizations within our government. They have this technology. It's not new. It's not any of that crap. This Tic Tac UFO from the that this person was forced to sign an NDA. We showed you the patents on here. the U.S. government filed for this. So it's not a UFO like everybody's thinking it is. Like if you see a TR-3B in the air, that's not a UFO. That is a United States Air Force aircraft. So I'm going to read this again for the 100th time, but you can just go look up U.S. Navy files patent for Tic Tac UFO, and it'll pull it all up on there for you guys. The USS Nimitz encounter with the UFO in 2003 continues to be the most credible unidentified flying object sighting of all time. Now, an anonymous Navy technician has allegedly come forward to give their account of the encounter and reveal that they were forced to sign an NDA to keep whatever they saw a secret. Dude, it's come out that it's not this. On November the 14th, 2004, U.S. Navy pilots encountered a UFO that boasted otherworldly flying capabilities. In October of 2019, Commander David Fravor went public with his account of a 40-foot-long white Tic Tac UFO that he observed over the Pacific Ocean on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. While piloting his FA-18 Super Hornet about 60 miles off the coast of California, Commander Fravor witnessed a UFO in the clear blue skies that defied the current expectations of modern aircraft. Fravor, who served 24 years in the military, said he saw a Tic Tac aircraft that hovered over the ocean, had no wings, propellers, or exhaust. Fravor was an 18-year Navy pilot veteran who served deployments in Iraq and that began during Operation Desert Storm. Members of the USS Nimitz, as well as the USS Princeton, a Terradoga, I don't know, class-guided missile cruiser that was supporting the Nimitz, have come forward to reveal that they saw a flying aircraft that was not a standard-issue aircraft. It has been known that the crew of the FA-18 Super Hornet sent to investigate suspicious radar signals of potential threat, but now a third aircraft is said to have documented a UFO. Dave Beatty, who directed the documentary The Nimitz Encounters, said he interviewed a U.S. Navy member who was an in-flight Navy technician aboard the E-2 Hawkeye, providing support to the two FA-18 Super Hornets investigating the strange aircraft in the Pacific Ocean. Appearing to the Hidden Truth show, Beatty said he spoke to an anonymous military member of the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group. Quote, "The gentleman I spoke to, I checked his background, and he did fly the Hawkeye," Beatty said. The reason he didn't want to come forward was because, according to him, he had to sign a document right after the incident and said he wouldn't talk about it. Beatty said that the man's anonymity, even going out on a limb and even mentioning to me, was sketchy for him. He didn't want his name used. So I'm not going to go into all this. I've read multiple articles about this, so has everybody else, but you can look up the patents on it. It's U.S.-owned aircraft. There's videos. Just go look up old Lockheed Skunk Works videos, and they'll show you. They got this thing called a Sparrow. They got all this other crap that can do a lot more than what they're showing you. Most of the stuff. So this is a good one for Virginia. This article says Virginia Senate strikes down assault weapons ban and won't revisit it for a year. Yeah, because the militias are starting to meet up over there. So the Virginia State Senate has voted down an effort to institute, quote, an assault weapons ban across the state. The ban would have prohibited the sale of certain semi-automatic firearms, including popular rifles like the AR-15. And ban the ownership of magazines that hold more than 12 rounds. While Democrats hold a narrow majority in the Virginia Senate, 4 moderate Democrats join Republicans in opposition to the controversial gun bill, according to the Associated Press. Last week, lawmakers in Virginia House of Delegates voted in favor of the bill before passing it on to the state Senate. On Monday, senators voted to put off the issue for 2020 and instead defer to Virginia's State Crime Commission to further study the issue. The vote on Monday reportedly drew cheers from gun rights activists who packed a Senate committee room to watch the vote. The result of the vote may come as a relief to gun rights activists throughout the state who have raised opposition to several gun control efforts proposed by the state's newly Democratic majorities in both houses of legislature. The gun control proposals have been widespread opposition throughout the state as a, quote, Second Amendment sanctuary movement rose up in response, and 91 of Virginia's 95 counties and several more localities passed non-binding resolutions claiming they would not prioritize enforcing new gun laws. Around 22,000 of those gun rights activists demonstrated on Virginia's Capitol Hill during the early weeks of state legislative session in opposition to the gun control proposal. Democratic Virginia Governor Ralph Northam had favored the ban and drew further opposition when he warned of, quote, consequences for those localities and did not enforce new gun laws. Representative Don McEachin, also suggested Northam could resolve opposition to the new gun laws by mobilizing the National Guard. More strict versions of the assault weapons ban bill met earlier opposition. Northam favored the bill's current iteration as a watered-down alternative that he hoped could gain more support from moderate Democrats. So good for Virginia. I mean, I don't know where this is going to go necessarily, but hopefully it doesn't get worse for these people. I'm going to play this because I think this is neat, and I don't really care what YouTube says about it. I'll probably get a copyright strike because of it. I really don't give a damn. If you're catching portions of this now on DLive, then you can go over to YouTube, and I'm just going to premiere it over there and then upload it to podcast form. All the links to socials, everything's in the About section. So this is pretty neat. This says, this deep fake of Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Holland in Back to the Future is unreal. Which I watched this, and I think this is really neat. So I'm going to play this real quick. I mean, look at it. It's one of my favorite movies.
How's your head?
Oh, good. Fine.
Oh, I've been so worried about you ever since you ran off the other night. Are you okay?
Oh, it's hurting.
I'm sorry I have to go.
Come on.
Isn't he a dreamboat?
Doc, she didn't even look at him.
This is more serious than I thought. Apparently your mother is amorously infatuated with you instead of your father.
Whoa, wait a minute. Doc, are you trying to tell me that my mother has got the hots for me?
Precisely.
Whoa, this is heavy.
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
What?
The only way we're going to get those two to successfully mate is if they are alone together. So you've got to get your father and mother to interact in some sort of social...
Well, what, you mean like a date?
Right.
Well, what kind of date? I don't know. What do kids do in the 50s?
Well, they're your parents. You must know them. What are their common interests? What do they like to do together?
Nothing.
But anyways, there's a whole bunch of them. You can go to this. I'll put the link in my in the Discord for this one in particular, and it's going to be in the link on the YouTube channel. But I just thought this was really neat because it's one of my favorite movies to watch. But the year of the deepfake is coming, so careful what you say and do on the interwebs. So this, I think, is interesting because apparently anyone that tells the truth about the coronavirus or COVID-19 or whatever the hell you want to call it, that's fake news or it's misinformation. And then if you're ahead of the curve, then they'll just demonize all your work or whatever it is. And anytime you put something out, then they just label it misinformation. This says, who holds secret talks with tech giants to stop spread of coronavirus misinformation? The World Health Organization has held talks with tech giants to stop the spread of the coronavirus misinformation, despite the fact that some things once labeled misinformation have since turned out to be true. That's the issue that we're having here. Look, if we put something out, if we parrot somebody's article, if we mirror somebody's article, if we do any of those things, putting news out there and then telling people don't necessarily believe that this is exactly what is going on. Just read it and take it for what it is. It could be fake news. But just this is some of the information that's out there. So I tend to put all the information out there and then let you decide. So it says the meeting was organized by the WHO, but hosted by Facebook. Surprise, surprise. And at its Millennium Park campus in California. Attendees include representatives from Spying Ass Amazon, Twilio, Dropbox, Alphabet Boy Google, Verizon, 5G, Salesforce, Twitter, YouTube, Airbnb, Kensa, and Mapbox. Don't support any of these jerk-offs here. They're all in cahoots with each other. According to the WHO's Andy Patterson, an infodemic of misinformation has accompanied the coronavirus outbreak, and big tech giants need to respond by censoring, quote, fake news content. Both Facebook and Twitter already announced that they would remove content deemed to be misinformation regarding the virus as a dangerous new lurch to mass censorship, given that what is considered, quote, misinformation is totally subjective and beholden to partisan bias. Exactly. Two clear samples of misinformation surrounding the coronavirus subsequently turned out true. Once again, the media defamed anyone who even talked about the biolab in Wuhan as fake news conspiracy theorists. Now, biological scientists from the prestigious South China University of Technology have concluded that coronavirus came from a biolab in Wuhan. The damn P4 plant, dude. And then all these guys are like, oh, this is breaking news. No. I get sent the same information everyone else does. I covered this 8 hours a day for 2 weeks straight, and then everyone started kyping my work. So, no, we told you it came from the P4 plant. We were telling everybody it came from the P4 plant. We were telling you how it got there. We are telling you all the information. And then some of the other guys are like, no, that's not true. And then it started to come out, and then it's breaking news all of a sudden. They got the audience, so everyone hangs on every word they say. So the first example was claims that China was hiding the true number of the coronavirus victims, once labeled a conspiracy theory by the media, but subsequently proven accurate on Friday when 14,800 new coronavirus cases were reported in a single day. Right. And then we were conspiracy theorists for saying that these numbers were way higher. Second example was suspicious that the virus could have emerged from a biosafety level 4 research lab in Wuhan. The contention has been aggressively attacked by the media and big tech giants. Zero Hedge was even banned by Twitter for reporting it, but a new study by scientists at the prestigious South China University of Technology and Guangzhou have confirmed that, quote, the killer coronavirus probably originated from a laboratory in Wuhan, not the damn wet market that everyone is saying, bat soups and all. Although that stuff is disgusting, it probably originated at the lab and then was sprinkled all over all the food up there like confetti. And people ate it. They probably infected animals with it on purpose, and people took it out. As Chinese dissidents and others have been defamed and in some cases imprisoned by authorities, but the media continues to treat any questioning of the official Chinese Communist Party narrative with disdain. My voice is being silenced by free speech hating Silicon Valley behemoths who want me disappeared forever. It's crucial that you support me. Please sign up for the free newsletter here and donate to me on Subscriber Star here. Support my sponsor, Emergency. And you guys can go to this. And here's the other thing. Like I said, Zero Hedge has been banned because the article they put out, and then it actually came out that article is true. And he got a life ban for harassment. I don't even think probably gonna do anything to let him back on here. I still tweet his articles. I don't crap. This White House plans to cut off sales of American chip technology to China because we're going through this whole thing with Huawei and all this crap going on. So it says just hours after Beijing lifted more trade war restrictions on importing U.S. farm products due to the outbreak, the White House has paid President Xi back by launching an economic assault on Huawei and other Chinese telecom companies that threatens to revive the trade war and strain the relationship between Beijing and Washington in the middle of a global pandemic. Despite all this, NASDAQ butts are up strongly pre-open, confirming what we already knew. The Fed-assisted market cares about only one thing, and it's not fundamentals. Still, American companies that produce chips and the technology to make them could lose access to major markets. As the Pentagon scrambles to pressure its European partners not to allow the use of Huawei's parts in their domestic 5G networks, reports from the last few days have claimed the White House is preparing to ratchet up the economic pressure on Huawei. Now, WSJ is reporting that Washington's wrath could hammer the entire Chinese telecom sector as the administration is considering a complete ban on selling American chip-making equipment and technology to Chinese firms. Once again, the Commerce Department is on the front lines of the pressure campaign. The department is reportedly drafting changes to the, quote, Foreign Direct Product Rule, which restricts the use of U.S. technology by foreign companies for national security reasons. Wall Street Journal explains the policy would be part of a broader effort to cut China off from their foreign technology that they haven't yet managed to replicate or steal. Chip manufacturing technology is one such area where Chinese companies like Huawei are still dependent on American suppliers. Jet engine technology is another. Still, the proposal shows the blunt tools the Trump administration is prepared to use in its bid to cut China off from America's semiconductor sector. Semiconductor technology is a key area where China has struggled to cut its reliance on foreign suppliers despite years of effort. Semiconductors rank among China's largest imports from the U.S. Well, you could just go to the Rothschilds, who own a semiconductor company down in Austin or Dallas, Texas, and I'm sure they would give the Chinese technology. I'm sure if they haven't already. Says they don't want any fab in the world to produce anything for Huawei. That's the goal. One person said, speaking of the chip fabrication plants that likely would be affected by the new trade limits. The Trump administration also is considering cutting off China from jet engine technology, another area where Beijing has struggled to shed reliance on U.S. and European manufacturers. U.S. chip manufacturing tool markers such as Applied Materials Inc. and Lam Research Corp. are among the biggest in the industry. The equipment they make is some of the most expensive machinery in the world. Setting up a modern chip factory typically costs many billions of dollars, and new restrictions on U.S. equipment could drive customers towards alternatives. It would be a huge disincentive for any fab to use U.S. equipment because there would be a limitation on that versus Japanese or Chinese equipment, one of the people said. Changes have reportedly been under discussion for weeks. Furthermore, this policy would accompany a separate ruling that would restrict chip sales to Huawei, as we reported in recent days. We suspect we'll be hearing more about this soon. Beefing up technology. This article is titled, "The Death of Free Speech." Zuckerberg asks governments for instructions on what discourse should be allowed. It's from Zero Hedge. It says, I have written for years on the effort of European countries to expand the crackdown on free speech globally through restrictions on social media and internet speech. It appears that Facebook chief executive Mark Zuckerberg has relented in what may prove to be the death knell for the free speech in the West. Zuckerberg seems to relent in asking governments for regulations stipulating what speech will be permitted on Facebook and other platforms. It's the ultimate victory of France, Germany, and England in their continuing attack on free expression through hate speech laws and speech regulation. Zuckerberg told an assembly of Western leaders Saturday at the Multi-Secretary Conference that there should be more guidance and regulation from these states on basically, take political advertising as an example, what discourse should be allowed. He did add, or the balance of free expression and some things that people call harmful expression. Where do you draw the line? The problem is that his comments were received as accepting that government will now dictate the range of free speech. What is missing is the bright line rule, long maintained by the free speech community. As tragically demonstrated in France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, speech regulations inevitably expand with time. The desire to silence one's critics becomes insatiable for both governments and individuals. Zuckerberg is facing great pressure, including from Democratic leaders in the United States, to regulate political speech, and he seems to be moving away from the bright line position against such regulations as a principle. There are a lot of decisions in these areas that are really just balances between different social values. It's about coming up with the answer that societies feel is legitimate and that they can get behind and understand that you drew the line here on the balance of free expression and safety. It's not just that there's one right answer. People need to feel like, okay, enough people weighed in, and that's why the answer should be this. And we can get behind that. And we can get behind that. So basically, a bunch of SJWs think that because their feelings aren't opposed to a fact, and they all feel this way about one thing in this hive mind, and then that's the right answer, aside from the fact. So your feelings. As long as you feel a type of way about some stuff, then there you go. That's the facts. Instead, as the above exposes, he is accepting the fluid concept of balanced regulations that has always preceded expanding speech codes and criminalization. So, in the future, your emotions will rule over facts by a bunch of limp-wristed pansies who want to take your firearms from you. So this article, I think this is from Blacklisted News, it says, Outrage as Downing Street advisor backs eugenics, mandatory birth control, and giving kids mind-altering drugs, psychotropic medications for your depression. Andrew Sabisky was one of the hires by 10 Downing Street after Johnson's chief buyer Dominic Cummings made a high-profile call to stock the office with misfits and weirdos. Revelations begin when the Times uncovered an interview Sabisky gave to Schools Weekly in which he spoke in favor of giving children a dose of cognitive enhancement drug modafinil. Even the controversial Cummings might have got more than he bargained for, as it has emerged that the 27-year-old Sabisky once called for a, quote, universal contraception program to stop the creation of, quote, permanent underclass, and also said that the benefits of brain-boosting drugs were, quote, probably worth a dead kid. Now, I'm reading these articles. These aren't my words. All right, so I'm just going to elaborate on that. The Labor Party called for the number 10 Downing Street researcher Andrew Sabisky to be sacked from his job, and we have no words to describe his comments. So, go on down here. It says, from a societal perspective, the benefits of giving everyone modafinil once a week are probably worth a dead kid once a year, he said. The researcher, who described himself as a super forecaster, also highlighted the positives of eugenics in the controversial interview. Eugenics are about selecting for good things, he said, and intelligence is largely inherited and correlates with better outcomes, physical health, income, lower mental illness, and there is no downside to having a high IQ except short-sightedness. One way to get around the problem of unplanned pregnancies, creating a permanent underclass, would be to legally enforce universal uptake of long-term contraception at the onset of puberty. Vaccination laws give it a precedent, I would argue, he wrote. Further revelations came in the Mail on Sunday, which reported that Sabisky also posted to a website run by Cummings saying existing vaccination laws could pave the way for mandatory birth control. Well, yeah, because that's the plan of it all, and that's probably why you got fired. You're telling their secrets. He also once tweeted, that's what Gardasil does, guy. He also tweeted that women's sports are more comparable to Paralympics than it is. Man, this guy is. He also once tweeted that, quote, women's sports is more comparable to the Paralympics than it is to men's. Jeez. I wonder what this dude looks like, or that's pretty hardcore. The extraordinary comments have sparked an avalanche of reaction, I would imagine, with the opposition Labour Party calling for the advisor to be sacked. MP David Lammy calls Sabisky, quote, sinister, while Shadow Cabinet Office Minister John Trickett said, quote, there are really no words to describe the hiring. This dude is... Jeez. So when Dominic Cummings put out the advert to weirdos to work in November 10th, it turns out he meant supporters of eugenics, deeply sinister, and Bruce Zabinski should be nowhere near government. Good job, guys. The outcry follows Sajid Javid's resignation over Chancellor after number 10 tried to dictate who his advisors were. Downing Street has yet to publicly comment on the matter, but political reports are tweeting that Zabinski's days working in Downing Street are numbered. Did the super forecaster see that one coming? So I just thought you guys would think that was, I mean, that guy was quite brutal in his comments. So this is coming whether you want to, if you're in this nation, you believe what your overlordic branch of the government's the CDC and the World Health Organization, because they have says and stuff, and you're wondering why they got says. Who is the who? Do they have a say in what goes on in the type of vaccinations the military gets? They have a say in a bunch of shit, and you guys are like, you know, stand over. And I'm not saying this against the elites enslave us, but people will stand on that line and say, well, the elites enslave us, and they want us to do all this stuff. Yeah, but you quote the WHO and the CDC like it's the gospel. Those guys are so corrupt, it's not even funny. So whenever I get to this part, and I tell you, and I've been telling people for months, and you can go back to my videos and my podcast, and you can look this up yourself. I've been telling you that Pal and Munchin, I call him Munchin, have been in discussions for kicking around the idea of whether or not they want to create a cashless society via blockchain and cryptocurrency. So they're sprinkling it in the media, and then if you read it, like it's getting more progressive. I think about a month ago, somebody came out and said that they were kicking around the idea to do something like this. And then some guys are like, it's just a rumor, it'll never get there. The hell it won't. I don't understand. You got some of these guys who are so anti-government, but don't think for 1 second that the government is going to try to make a cashless society. We have to be in a one world currency. That is part of the plan for all these people. They want to be able to track everything you do. So anything you buy, sell, or trade will be tracked through hash rates on a blockchain. And for you to brush off all, it's just a rumor. We'll never get there. Okay. Believe what you want to believe, but it's coming. China's going to the digital yuan. You're going to trade on a blockchain with just cash, and your cash is going to contain no value in comparison to whatever they're trading on a blockchain. That's what you believe, and that's what you believe. But eventually, it's coming, and you're going to have to accept that fact. But I'm sure when it gets here, you'll be like, "If we broke it here first, we told you guys about it," because that's what you do. So, mapping out the banking elite's goal for a cashless monetary system, part 1. Back in 2014, the Bank of England became the first central bank to publish research on digital currencies through the quarterly bulletin. Cat is over here meowing. Which I've showed all this stuff. So this rumor stuff that, this is just rumor right now. It's not rumors, man. I pay attention to all this stuff. So, it goes on to say, a leading focus was on the use of distributed ledger technology, with the research declaring, quote, key innovation of digital currencies in the distributed ledger, which allows a payment system to operate in an entirely decentralized way without intermediaries such as banks. Which is why, and some people have covered this, and you can find the paperwork if you look real hard for it. But if you do Bitcoin, NSA was the ones that created the hash rates for that. Who's Satoshi? No one knows exactly. So it's an experiment. It's an experiment just like they experimented with vaccinations, giving African Americans syphilis in the South. All this stuff is, let's put it out of society. Let's test it. Let's see where it goes from here. That is basically the gist of everything that happens. They'll sprinkle it out there. No one pays attention to it, and before you know it, it's knocking at your front door, and everyone's going cashless society, getting, Gardasil shots or pretty soon, I guess, a COVID shot in 18 months prevent a spread of a virus, which will probably just make it worse for everybody else. But this shit's coming. So if you're gonna say this is a rumor, it's not, dude. It's not a rumor. They're experimenting with all the different varieties of cryptocurrencies right now. One of the main draws of this technology is the belief that cryptocurrency and stablecoins offer a genuine route of the traditional centralized model of banking that epitomizes fiat currency. But it's bypassing central banks and being able to make and receive payments independent of these institutions, really what the rise in digital currency is all about. 6 years ago, 6 years on from the BOE's research, the digital currency agenda has advanced significantly in the face of increased geopolitical instability, an area of interest that has garnered scant attention in the utility settlement coin, or the USC. And if you don't know this, if you have a Coinbase wallet, they do have a USD coin already. You can, I have some. I not a lot, but just go to Coinbase. You can buy a digital currency that's based on US dollar. It's already there. It already exists. So for anyone that, oh, this is just a rumor, okay, I have USD coin, I have Bitcoin, but I'm telling you right now, it'll get here. It says an area of interest has garnered scant attention is the utility settlement coin, the USC project that several global banks have been heavily invested in. It is a project that has now evolved through the inception of Finality International, a consortium of shareholders that includes UBS, Barclays, and Lloyd's Banking Group. Here's a breakdown of some of the key events in which have taken place in regards to USC since the BOE's research was published. In September of 2015, a partnership consisting of Swiss banks UBS and UK-based blockchain firm Clearmatics was announced that officially launched the concept of utility settlement coin. As detailed by Bitcoin Magazine, USC could be utilized for post-trade settlements between financial institutions and private financial platforms built on a blockchain technology. With blockchain underpinning the foundations of the USC payments, would be settled in a matter of seconds rather than days. It would operate using permissioned blockchain networks, meaning access to the network must be granted by participants. This is in contrast to the likes of Bitcoin, which uses a permissionless network that anyone can access. As discussed in previous articles, central banks openly advocate permissioned blockchain for the future development of digital currencies. In 2016, a year from the original announcement of the USC, Santander, BNY Mellon, and Deutsche Bank all issued press releases to confirm that they had gone into partnership with UBS and Clearmatics to develop the utility settlement coin. Reacting on the news, Julio Farah, head of the blockchain R&D at Santander, said, "Recent discussion of digital currencies by central banks and regulations has confirmed their potential significance. The USC is an essential step towards future financial markets on distributed ledger technologies." Expanding on the definition of USC's, Deutsche Bank's press release stated, USC is an asset-backed digital cash instrument implemented and distributed ledger technology for the use within global institution financial markets. USC is a series of cash assets with a version for each of the major currencies: USD, EUR, GBP, CHF, etc. And USC is a convertible at parity with a bank deposit in the corresponding currency. USC is fully backed by cash assets held at central banks. And this is what I've been trying to tell everybody. See how it says USC is fully backed by cash assets held at central banks? Because you don't have gold anymore. That you have a promissory note, but you can no longer take a promissory note to the bank and interchange it for the gold that you're promised via the note. So it's what I've been telling everybody. They're going to take a USC, or whatever you want to call it, and they're going to give the value to the fiat currency, and they're going to just swap it out. So any of the circulating promissory notes, the value of those promissory notes will be equivalent to whatever the value is worth of your USC, for instance, in the blockchain. So that'll be pretty much how this operates. It's not they're just turning it around because they can't. I mean, I guess they could just destroy all the money and start over. But this way you have something that its value it fluctuates, and then on top of that, I mean, you wouldn't have to get rid of the currency. But no, it's conspiracy right now it's just conspiracy to some of these guys out here. But as soon as this comes out, all you heard it here first. Financial Times quoted David Treat, head of the Accenture's capital markets blockchain practice, as saying the technology behind USC would be, quote, 3 to 5 years before we get things adopted at a scale, and several more years before it goes mainstream. In 2017, exactly 12 months after Santander, BNY Mellon, and Deutsche Bank announced their involvement in USC, more banks came on board in the shape of Barclays, Credit Suisse, HSBC, the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, a Mitsubishi Financial Group, and State Street. It was here where the links made between USC and the future development of central bank digital currencies. Speaking to CoinDesk, Peter Jeffrey, the Director of Strategic Investment and FinTech Innovation at UBS, said, It may well inform the way central banks choose to move things forward, and we see this stepping stone into a future where central banks issue their own cryptocurrency at some point. Head of the FinTech Partnerships and Strategy at HSBC, Kashwalaya Somadasiridiam, added to Jeffrey's comments. It's a very good step forward in these terms of going for a more ambitious project such as central bank digital currencies in the future. September 2017, the Bank of International Settlements released their quarterly review that contained a section titled Central Bank Cryptocurrencies. It was here where the BIS presented an illustration called the Money Flower, a taxonomy of money, which consisted of a mix of universally accessible money, electronic money, central bank issued money, and peer-to-peer transactions. Located in the middle of the flower was a utility settlement coin. This despite how relatively under-advanced the venture was at the time. The review did not present any details for why USC was included, other than to reaffirm the definition of the term by linking to a press release issued by the UBS in August of 2016. Nonetheless, for the BIS, it would take notice of the USC shows that the technology was being actively considered at the highest levels of central banking. In 2019, with the USC project progressing in February 2019, JP Morgan announced they had become the first U.S. bank to create and test a digital coin, known as the JPM coin. Characterized as a stable coin, the JPM coin is underpinned by blockchain technology and runs on a permission blockchain network. For the time being, it is restricted to institutional clients only. As with other stablecoins, the value of the JPM coin is equivalent to $1. But the plan to extend the use of the coin beyond the dollar and encompass other leading currencies around the world. Far from being averse to the technology, JP Morgan are fully behind cryptocurrencies provided they are properly controlled and regulated. A few months later, and the first soundings began to emerge, the utility settlement coin entering a new phase of development. In May, Reuters reported that some of the largest banks in the world were in the process of investing up to $50 million to create a digital system using blockchain technology to settle financial transactions. A spokeswoman from Barclays confirmed at the time that the research and development phase of the USC was, quote, coming to an end. $50 million in funds would make up a new entity called Finality, which would be tasked with running the project. In June came confirmation of the involvement of the USC into the Finality International. A subsequent press release, the founding shareholders of Finality were listed as Banco Santander, BNY Mellon, Barclays, Canadian Imperial Banks, Commonwealth Bank, Credit Issues, ING, KBC Group, yada yada yada. If you see NASDAQ's in there, it says UK blockchain from the Clearmatics were confirmed as maintaining their role as the technology partner to the project. Here's an extract from the press release. The focus for Finality is now to create and deploy a solution incorporating legal, regulatory, operational, and technical aspects to create a regulated network of distributed financial market infrastructures to support global exchange of value transactions. Initially, 5 currencies are in scope: USD, EUR, GBP, JPY, and CAD. Further currencies will likely be added in due course. USC C, being 100% backed by fiat currency, held in the respective central bank with convertibility into fiat currency at par, guaranteed at all times. The CEO of Finality, Rahmanos Ram, stated that the launch of Finality was, quote, the commercial realization of the USD project, and that the USD will be an enabler for the tokenized markets. Speaking a few months later, Ram said that one of the main areas of interest was establishing a digital currency capability in each currency. This is why Finality is preparing to open accounts with all major central banks with the aim of having one account operational in early 2020 and for a digital currency to go live by the summer. The potential significance of the Finality was illustrated in September when the senior officials from public authorities gathered at the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. Up for discussion during the conference of global stablecoins was a regulatory issue posed by the emergence of stablecoin initiatives backed by financial institutions and large technology companies. Recall how 2 years previously the BIS quarterly report included, quote, the money flower, which USD as part of the network. Now as Finality International, they were invited to give a presentation hosted by the BIS, JP Morgan, and the Libra Association also gave their own presentations. This was an event convened by a group of 7 working groups on stablecoins, which at the time was chaired by Benoit Coeur. Having been chair of the Committee of Payments and Market Infrastructures, Coeur is now head of the BIS Innovation Hub. The BIS have since run 2 other conferences on digital money, and the first being in September 2019, Fintech and Digital Currencies, in conjunction with the Asian Bureau of Finance and Economic Research and the Center for Economic Policy Research based in Britain. The second was in October, Digital Currency, Central Banks, and the Blockchain Policy Implications, and was co-sponsored by this national bank here, Central Bank of Austria, and the Central Bank Research Association. As I have written about before, the BIS are central to the agenda of digitizing money at the expense of tangible assets. Exactly how instrumental Finality could be to that agenda is something we all look at in part 2 of this series, which I'll cover part 2 on this, because like I said, it's gonna happen. So all these guys are saying right now it's a rumor. Yeah, it's been removed for a very long time. You're just now getting into this, so you're like, oh, it's just a rumor. So I think this is the last article I have. This is called The Geopolitics of Biological Weapons, Part 3, Population Control and Doomsday Vault. So genetically modified seeds and genetically modified food carry great risk for all nations, so much so that many reasons it is probably imperative these foods are banned outright, which they are in a lot of countries. This subject is too large to be discussed here, but in one aspect requires a brief notice. If we were to ask about the origin of genetically modified seeds, how the idea was conceived and developed, who did the research, and who provided the funding, how would we reply? We might reasonably suggest that perhaps the concept originated in the biology or agriculture department of some university, or that some government lab doing research on food supplies might have conceived and pursued the idea. Or we might suggest a private company in agriculture field was looking for a more productive varieties of grain and stumbled on this process, Monsanto and Bayer. We might suggest that all these answers, but in each case we would be wrong. Genetically modified seeds was conceived, promoted, research, and funded by the U.S. Department of Defense, the American War Department. GM seeds was never meant as a way to feed the hungry, but was instead conceived and deployed as a weapon, or more precisely, as a weapon delivery system. Genetically modified seed was never intended to support human life, but to eliminate it. Genetically modified seed is neither more productive nor healthier than traditional heritage crops, and is far more expensive and destructive, but it presents almost irresistible military advantages against any nation that becomes dependent on this source of food and grains. One is that the U.S. can use it as a political weapon, refusing to supply seeds to a disfavored nation, and perhaps causing widespread famine and dislocation. The other is more sinister, and many groups have experimented with gene splicing technology, inserted unrelated DNA into various seeds. In one case in Canada, a government department discovered a, quote, antifreeze gene contained in the blood of fish living in the Arctic waters, permitting them to survive in the waters of sub-zero temperature. The scientists spliced this gene into Canadian wheat crops, permitting the wheat to withstand freezing temperatures without damage. Monsanto also forced these genes into tomatoes, resulting in the first genetically modified organism, or GMO, tomato. An American research lab spliced the genes from fireflies into tobacco plants, producing a tobacco field that glowed in the dark. And these examples may be harmless, but others are much less so. The U.S. Defense Department has invested huge sums in research directed to splicing lethal genes into these GM crop seeds, including smallpox, bird and swine flu viruses, coronaviruses, the plague, AIDS, and more. As a military weapon, such science is priceless. Why begin a shooting war when Monsanto or Cargill can sell rice, corn, and soybeans that contain smallpox, H5N1, or a coronavirus? When the seed is harvested and passes into the nation's food supply, it could within weeks exterminate 50% or more of the population without firing a single shot. And this was precisely the reason GM seed was conceived and developed by the Americans. It is a weapon of war designed and meant to deliver to a nation's entire population a lethal virus or other disease to literally exterminate an enemy with no risk to the aggressor. Many scientists and U.S. military documents have demonstrated that seeds are far cheaper and much more effective than bombs in the search for military domination. One such military document I've discussed elsewhere stated the cost per death of an enemy population by nuclear, conventional, and biological weapons, and the latter being orders of magnitude less than the former. In 2001, scientists at the Epicide Biolab in San Diego created a GM contraceptive corn, having discovered a rare class of human antibodies that attack sperm. The researchers isolated the genes that regulate the manufacture of these antibodies and inserted them into corn plants, creating horticultural factories that make contraceptives. Shortly after the 2001 Epicide press release, all discussions of the breakthrough vanished. The company was taken over by Biolex, and nothing more was heard in any media about the development of spermicidal corn. Epicide, DuPont, and Syngenta, sponsors of the Salvard Seed Vault, had a joint venture to share the use of this technology. Silvia Ribeiro, the NGO ETC Group, warned in a column that Mexican daily La Jordana and the potential of spermicidal corn as a biological weapon is very high. And excuse me. Excuse me, I think I was about to sneeze. And referencing about the use of forced sterilizations against indigenous peoples. So a new series caused concern for recently announced sea vault built in the piece of the barren rock named Svalbard, which is owned by Norway, is very remote to the North Pole and virtually inaccessible. According to a press release, the seed vault has dual blast-proof doors with motion sensors, 2 airlocks, and walls of steel-reinforced concrete 1 meter thick. There are no full-time staff, but the vault is relative inaccessibility will facilitate monitoring any human activity. The stated purpose is to store the entire world's heritage seeds so that crop diversity can be saved for the future, but that crop diversity is already, quote, saved, stored in vaults all around the world. What do these people foresee that such a remote and secure facility should be developed? The promoters and financiers of this venture are the same people who control the world's genetically modified seeds and who have been among the most outspoken proponents of drastically reducing the world's population. The Rockefeller and the Gates Foundations, Syngenta, DuPont, Monsanto, and the CGIAR. These are the same people who are actively destroying crop diversity all over the planet. Why would they suddenly get religion and decide to save, in Norway, the same seeds they are destroying everywhere else? So that's pretty much it. I was just doing this live for a podcast. I'm gonna go and post it on, I guess, YouTube, premiered on YouTube or whatever. So if you guys want to follow any of the social medias, the links are in the About section on YouTube, the About section on DLive. You can go there to the website, listen to the podcast, anywhere podcasts are available. So I'm going to go ahead and get off here. Until then, you guys have a wonderful evening, I guess. I'll probably be back on DLive streaming later. You guys have a good evening. Yah bless and shalom.